Alright, so I'm currently navigated to the directory on my computer where I have all of my CSV files as well as all of the Jupyter notebooks that we've been creating throughout these modules. And you can also see here at the bottom that there are two Excel files. We can tell by that XLSX extension at the end. And these two files are a little bit different. In my single worksheet file, I have a single worksheet or a single tab of data. And in my multiple worksheets Excel file, I have two tabs of data. And just to show you what this would look like in Excel, I have it open right here. So on my single worksheet project, I have this single data tab. We have a simple data set here, just a couple rows and a couple columns. And in my multiple worksheets example, I have two tabs, data 1 and data 2, and both of them are storing data sets. So let's go and walk through the process of importing either one of these files into my Jupyter Notebook to work with. Excel remains one of the most popular spreadsheet application programs in the world. I think it's something like 90% of corporations use it. So it is very ubiquitous, and certainly many times you're not going to get data in a CSV format or any of those kind of unique big data formats. You might just be getting it in an Excel file. And certainly you can open it in Excel and export it to CSV, but with pandas everything is possible from the outset. So in this lesson, let's dive into how we can import an Excel file with an actual LX or XLSX extension. So we know that we have our read family of methods. If I do pd.read, we have our read CSV method right here, and right below it we have a read Excel method. So I'm going to press enter to load that and then put in our parentheses. And again, if you don't have the two libraries that we installed in the previous lesson, this isn't going to work. But as long as you do, it's a pretty simple process. It operates basically the exact same way as a read CSV method does. So the very first argument here is going to be the name of the file. So I'm just going to type out data, press tab. Here we can see our two Excel files pop up. We have single worksheet and multiple worksheets. Let's begin with single worksheet. And when I execute this, simple as you would expect, it's imported that Excel file. You can see it's generated that automatic index to the left. This part is not part of the Excel file. So these four columns, first name, last name, city, and gender, are actually the columns within my Excel file, but in order to convert them to a data frame, it has to add that index. So pretty simple. You know, we've basically become very familiar with this through read CSV. Once we're satisfied with how it looks, we can just assign it to a variable like df, and now we have a df variable pointing to a data frame that has been imported with data from our single worksheet Excel file. Pretty easy, pretty simple. Gets a little bit more tricky when we're working with Excel files with multiple tabs. So let's once again call the read Excel method on my pandas library. And this time I'm going to look for data again, but this time I'm going to do multiple worksheets. And of course the first question that should come up is, how is it going to import multiple worksheets or multiple tabs into a single data frame? What pandas is actually going to do by default, let's see if this works, is it's going to import the very first tab within my Excel file. So if I take a look at my multiple worksheets Excel file right here, this data 1 is what's going to be pulled in. We can see Brandon, Sean, Judy, Ashley, Stephanie, and we have right here Brandon, Sean, Judy, Ashley, Stephanie have been pulled in. So it's going to default to the first one in line, and all of the other worksheets are basically going to be ignored. Now, if we want to import a single worksheet or a single tab from Excel, that's totally fine. If we want to do the same thing, but we want to specify which one of those worksheets we want to include, we do have a sheet name parameter, spelled sheet name with no spaces or underscores. Now, what we can provide here is either the name of the worksheet within my Excel file or the numeric position, keeping in mind that the numeric position starts counting at 0, just like everything else in Python and pandas. So if I want the same thing that I have here, the very first worksheet, I can either enter 0, which is going to be my first worksheet in line, or I can enter the actual name of the worksheet, which is data 1. So you can see we're getting the exact same result. If you just want to import the first thing in line, you really don't need this additional sheet name parameter. However, it becomes super helpful if you want to specify a different singular worksheet. So if I want the second worksheet in my Excel workbook, I can give it the argument 1, which again is the index position 1 represents the second item. So now if you pay attention, this data frame, its values are going to change. Now it kicks off with Parker. So now we've imported this second worksheet in line within my Excel workbook. And I can also provide the actual name of the sheet itself as an alternate argument. So if I want to import the sheet, it's called data2 in my Excel file. You can see I get the exact same result. Now, of course, if you want to import all of them, all you have to do is provide a list to the sheet name parameter and basically give it a list of all of the index values or all of the columns that you want to import. So if you only want to import, or rather, sorry, worksheets that you want to import. So if you have an Excel workbook with 10 worksheets, but you only want to import 5 of them, you can just write in the names separated by commas. So for example, if I want data 1 and data 2, I can either write it like this, and I'm going to get a result. It's going to look a little bit weird right now, but I'll explain what this is in a second. Or what I can do here is simply give it a list of index positions. 0 and 1 represent the first and second worksheets within my Excel workbook. Now what we're actually going to get here, in case you can figure it out, if you look at these curly braces, that should be the ultimate hint. This is actually a dictionary. The reason that Pandas resorts to a dictionary is because it has multiple data frames essentially, and it doesn't know how to store them. How do you store two different separate two-dimensional objects within one visual view? You can't. So what we actually should do here is assign this to a variable. Let's assign it to a variable called data. So if I enter my data variable into Python's built-in type function, we'll get that it is a dictionary. And basically, if I take a look at it again, actually data, not dict, you can see that the key in each dictionary is actually going to be the original sheet index position. So here we have 0 and here we have 1. So the way that we can reference each internal data frame within this Python dictionary is just using bracket syntax, which is how you extract a key from a Python dictionary, or rather how you provide a key to a Python dictionary to get a value back that is associated with that key. So if I do 0, I'm going to get the first data frame, which represents the information on my first worksheet or my first tab. And if I put in 1, I'm going to get my second one. And similarly, if I replace this one with data 1 and data 2, let's see what happens here. Now if I take a look at that and I take a look at data, you'll see that the keys in the dictionary will be the worksheet names. Now I generally prefer this approach because it kind of makes referencing a little bit more logical. Instead of referencing the original worksheets based on their index position, you can reference them based on their original names in the Excel workbook. So now I have a data dictionary, and I'm going to use square brackets to provide a key, and that key is basically going to be my worksheet name. So if I have data 1, there's the data from the data 1 worksheet in my Excel workbook, and if I put in data 2, now I have the columns from my data 2 Excel worksheet. So now I'm basically going to have a dictionary of that sense. Now you may be saying, what if I have 10 different worksheets and I want to import all of them at the same time? I certainly don't want to write a list of 10 of these things. Is there anything that I can give to sheet name to basically automate this entire process? And the answer is yes. Instead of providing a list to this, you can simply provide an argument of none. That's a unique Python data type. Now, when I execute this, we're still going to get a dictionary. But when I take a look at data, it's basically going to automate the process of giving the dictionary keys as the worksheet names, and the values will be a data frame for that sheet's contents. So if we have 15 different tabs or 15 different worksheets within an Excel workbook, this sheet name equals none way is the quickest way to kind of bundle all of those up into a big dictionary of data frames. If you only want to work with specific worksheets, you don't want to import all of them, then you do have to provide a list of strings, each string corresponding to a specific worksheet name within the Excel workbook. And of course, you still have that index position option if you want to import it by its position within the workbook. So that's just an introduction to importing Excel files, either with single worksheets or multiple worksheets. And in the next lesson, we'll dive into how we can export Excel files from Pandas to an actual XLSX file.